It's that time of year where you could go mentally insane looking at the zillions and zillions and zillions of mock drafts out there, thrown out there by NFL drafts analysts, the Mel Kipers of the world, the Todd McShays of the world, the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world, and all these other draft experts from all these different sites, the national talking heads, the pundits, the analysts, the experts, and I do the same thing. I'm a part of it. I like to look at mock drafts. It's fun. It's interesting. You got mock draft 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. But here's the difference. I'm very selective in which mock drafts I pay attention to. There is a specific mock draft I do pay attention to, put out by a specific individual who I think is pretty accurate. There's two that I think are pretty accurate. Mock draft Mel Kiper is pretty accurate. But then there's two outside of Mel Kiper that I tend to gravitate towards. Daniel Jeremiah of NFL.com and Peter Schrager of Good Morning Football. These two guys have a good pulse and sense of what NFL teams want to do. They're not random bloggers posting their predictions on mock drafts. They have inside knowledge of situations. They have relationships with NFL organizations. And I think that they don't just throw crap against the wall and hope it sticks. When they put something out there with their name tied to it, there is certain rumblings or certain feelers that this team is going to do that or this. And it's not that their mock drafts won't change as draft day comes closer, but they have a good temperature of the room and then they adjust it just like anybody would if the temperature gets too hot or temperature gets too cold outside, which affects the inside. And right now in Minnesota, it's been like negative 15 degrees for 3 or 4 straight days. So the temperature changes. And sometimes that happens in mock drafts. It happens all the time. So the latest one, released 20 hours ago by Daniel Jeremiah of NFL.com, has the Minnesota Vikings selecting a running back with the 24th overall pick. And again, with these mock drafts, it's barring any trades, it's barring any players that you don't sign in free agency where there's a big hole there. So these things change and are fluid. It changes. But as of right now, mock draft 2.0 from Daniel Jeremiah, he has the Vikings selecting Trevion Henderson, a running back out of Ohio State. And with every pick, he gives a little excerpt. And his excerpt is this: the Vikings have had an up-close look at what a dynamic runner can do for an offense that also features a loading passing attack. See Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. Minnesota finds its own RB weapon in Henderson, with Aaron Jones headed towards free agency. So this is a prediction and a feeler that Aaron Jones will explore free agency options and maybe not even sign with the Minnesota Vikings. I think this makes sense. But it also makes sense from the development of J.J. McCarthy, because the Minnesota Vikings are invested in McCarthy. And as of right now, it appears that Darnold is going to play somewhere else next season, unless something unexpected happens over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if you are going to go all in with J.J. McCarthy, there are 2 positions offensively that you need to solidify via free agency or via draft. And with the draft class this year being so deep at running back, the Minnesota Vikings are expected to explore that position either in the first round, second round, third round, or maybe multiple rounds, depending on the picks that they have this year. I don't think they have a second round pick because they traded it last year to move up in the draft. But with free agency, I think the expectation right now is that the Minnesota Vikings would find solidified starters on the interior offensive line that can replace Blake Brandel and Dalton Reisner. Because let's make no mistake about it, the interior offensive line is one of the biggest holes on the Minnesota Vikings entire roster. And the last thing that you want to do is put your practically rookie quarterback, first-time starting quarterback, out there to get obliterated by the defensive tackles for the Eagles or defensive tackles on elite NFL football teams. So that's a hole. And the expectation is that the Vikings would try to fill a void like that in free agency, whether it's Trey Smith. I saw someone talking about Baltimore Ravens offensive lineman. I think there's the Score North guys. They're talking about a Baltimore Ravens offensive lineman that's a Swiss Army knife, and he can play multiple different positions. But having a running back like Trevion Henderson is only going to make the Minnesota Vikings offense more elite. And I can guarantee you right now, this is an easy guarantee. The easy guarantee of the day, sponsored by, I don't have a sponsor. So if you want to sponsor that segment, the easy guarantee is the Minnesota Vikings want play action with J.J. McCarthy to be a focal point of their offense, just like it was with Sam Darnold and Aaron Jones. Out of play action, Sam Darnold was his most effective. And the Minnesota Vikings expect the same with J.J. McCarthy. And in order for the play action pass to be most effective, the Vikings need to bring in a guy like Trevion Henderson to create a threat of the pass, which opens up the play action to the receivers out wide. Taking a look at Trevion Henderson's college statistics at the Ohio State University. 2024, 144 carries for 1,000 yards. 2023, 156 carries for 926 yards. 2022, 107 carries for 571 yards. And then his first year, which is actually his best season, 183 carries for 1,248 yards, which is very interesting. His freshman season was his best overall statistical season for the Ohio State Buckeyes. 15 touchdowns his first year, 6 touchdowns his second year, 11 touchdowns his third year, and 10 touchdowns his last year. However, that is not the end of the story for Trevion Henderson. If you know the Minnesota Vikings, and I think I do, it's not just about that rushing attack. What made the Minnesota Vikings offense so good last year, what helped them take that next step, is that Aaron Jones is a very good receiving back, and so is Trevion Henderson. His rookie year, freshman year, 27 catches, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns. His second year, I don't know if he had injuries, kind of appears that way, so that's kind of a wash. Third year, junior year, 19 catches, 229 yards. And his last year, 27 catches, 284 yards, 1 touchdown. So Henderson has proven that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. And that is a big focal point of Kevin O'Connell's offense. You can't just have a guy that can run. You need a guy that can catch. Aaron Jones had statistically one of his best seasons in his NFL career with the Minnesota Vikings last year. Rushing, receiving, and the reason why is because he's a multi-dimensional back, and that is one of the most important things that Kevin O'Connell is going to covet. Aaron Jones had 51 catches for 408 yards in his one and only season so far with the Minnesota Vikings, which ranks third in his career catches between the Packers and Vikings. So having a guy that can catch is only going to help the Vikings offense led by first-year starter J.J. McCarthy. So when I take a look at Daniel Jeremiah's mock prediction, and I take a look at where the Minnesota Vikings are going to look at in the draft and free agency, I think this makes 100% sense. And I think that he found a feeler out there and put his analyst hat on and linked Trevion Henderson with the Minnesota Vikings, and I think it makes sense. I would not be surprised at all if the Minnesota Vikings pursued Henderson and made him RB1 behind first-year starter J.J. McCarthy. Because right now the Vikings want to do everything in their power to make things as easy as possible for McCarthy. The last thing you want to do is have no rushing attack, have no interior offensive lineman to block for him, and just have wide receivers out wide that can catch. You got to have the full package. And if you want to duplicate your success that they had the previous season with Darnold, then the Vikings need to find these pieces, and they need to find these pieces badly. They can't just find decent guys. They need to find very, very good offensive linemen and RB1s for the 2025 season. All right, thank you for watching, and thank you for making this podcast part of your day. Hit that subscribe button and follow button wherever you are watching and listening. Appreciate you all.